I just heard through the grapevine, through a few sources, that Betty White had passed away. Oh my goodness. See, I just reported, and a lot of people did, and on Twitter, and it was to be shown 100 years of Betty White, and it looks like she passed away weeks before 100th birthday. Because if you go look, I have a long video going over how Betty White is going to be having this 100-year birthday celebration. And I said, wow, she's made it 100 years. And that's 100 years of Betty White, of just her brand, like the whole thing, right? Her whole life. But she showcased her whole life, a good deal of it on the, not just on the internet, but on the television, way before anybody was really on the internet. She was around for a really long time, so it looks like, unfortunately, it is true because it is on TMZ that she has passed. But let's look closer. 11:44 a.m. Pacific time. A source close to Betty tells TMZ she didn't have any sudden illness, nor was she battling any particular ailment. We're told she's believed to have died from natural causes. As we told you back in 2020, Betty rarely left her home once the COVID-19 pandemic began. Beloved actress, comedian, and American icon Betty White has died just weeks before a milestone birthday. Yeah, it was supposed to be a big event. And she passed away today at her home just before 9:30 a.m. So that was this morning, they're saying. Trailblazer and pioneer in media, Betty had the longest career for any woman in TV prior to her death, starring in multiple shows over the past 8 decades. This was a household name when I was growing up, when you were to think of a grandmotherly figure. If you didn't have a grandmother, or even if you did, she was the one to relate, sort of like this quirky, cute. Um, she was well kempt and had her values, but she was also not very. She was a lighthearted character. Yeah, so it looks like the Golden Girl, has finally laid to rest. Um, Betty Marion White Ludden, born January 17th, 1922. It's now just about 2022, guys, so she didn't make it to 2022. She died in 2021. Um, because tomorrow is 2022. And so she just stayed in 2021, like John Madden also died in 2021. Two beautiful characters that were huge inspirations to me in my life. And you can see in this one, she wasn't looking too good. Like, she looked all prissy and whatnot when you see her, but I don't want to leave that up for too long, but it looked like she wasn't doing too good. She started to have ailments, all right? But I like to, and we all like to remember people for their best, not their worst. Here she is when she was younger. And as you can see, she just looked like a fine young lady. And they even had color picture back then for the picture. That's crazy to think. we're getting to that time now where color picture was a huge invention when that was like the tippy top of expensive technology, was to take a nice color photo. That's why back then these people that like back then to be featured in a color photo like this from a super expensive camera back then, you were a superstar. You would make tons of money. This photo would make money. Photos used to make big money. Now everybody's got Instagram and they're taking photos. Now we have all the other technologies with the webcams and the 3D cameras and this camera and the 4K. Now it's all about video and all that too. But back then, camera and all that was top of the top. But they had movies and everything too, so don't get me wrong. But it was all presented much differently than it's presented now. But you have people like me and many others that grew up under Betty White, and she was our grandmother. And she taught us values, and people like her taught us values that we can teach the ones under us, and that will affect human history for generations and generations. Okay? Everything I need to know, I learned from Betty White. Here's Betty White with Easy E, supposedly. Look at this dog here. Betty White celebrated her 99th in Betty fashion. This was the big celebration about to be going on. I'm sure the show will still go on. Okay, the show cannot be stopped. Betty White was born in 1922. Penicillin was discovered in 1928. They didn't even have penicillin. That's like an antibiotic or whatever to save you from certain infections. Now we have all these antibiotics and these vaccines. I wish they marketed them different in some way, but they didn't. Did you know that before they had developed antibiotics, people would die from very minor infections or cuts or abrasions and things? So there's a certain point where it can get to where it's a good, oh, for sure it's a great thing, but you don't want to overdo it too. It's actually more effective the less you use it. You actually want to be very strategic. It's not like everybody go get this, everybody go get that. It's you want to be very strategic with your antibiotics and your vaccinations and things, because if you've ever heard, people can develop a immunity to those. So if you're just giving yourself those remedies all the time, you've built up that immunity, and then what happens is then you develop those mutations like the Omicron and all that. See, that's what they did. They said, "Oh, everybody get this," but they've relatively killed it. But now you got to watch. Omicron's going to develop into something very bad eventually, because it's supposed to be highly targeted. Like when you have an infection, uh, and you get antibiotic, and you have to get a certain kind of antibiotic they haven't used in a really long time. And generally, under scientific recommendation, you want to stay away from all antibiotics and things like that until you really need it. And if you really need it, you take it, it eliminates your infection. It does what it was invented to do. It saved your life. But people that think it's all just gonna be like candy and consume, because there is people that do a lot of antibiotics.